Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me it's a good morning, and for everyone there it's a good evening. My name is Darshan Divakaran. I go by Dash. I'm the senior manager for strategic innovation and partnerships for the United States Air Force program called AFWERX. And today's session, I'm going to be talking about the future of air mobility, and I'll highlight a little bit about drones and about electric vertical takeoff aircraft, and also whatever questions you have. And these are my thoughts and my vision, and does not reflect the Air Force's vision and thoughts. I have been in the drone industry for now over about 7 years, close to 8 years, and in United States, early 2014, I helped create the drone program for a couple of states, including the state of North Carolina. So this is a time when drones were still thought about as a toy rather than a technology. I was one of the first few people to see the benefits and educate people nationally, internationally, and help create programs for police departments, fire departments, state and local agencies, federal agencies, including working with FAA, NASA, and various agencies. So started out from manned aviation, got into drones, and now I help the United States Air Force understand the future of air mobility with electric vertical takeoff aircrafts, hyperspectral, HS VTOL. It's called eVTOL, HS VTOL, STOLs, and basically anything that is air mobility related. So so what is exactly the future of aviation? And it's not just aircrafts, even though aircrafts is the number one thing in my list, but the future it has a lot to do with technology and environment. So aircraft, your drones, eVTOLs have really reshaped what aviation is. And I think with drones getting into being used widely, and people understanding that drones are part of aviation, we are right now in aviation 2.0. Aviation 1.0 was all about manned aviation, having a human as the priority, and 2.0 is where we have AI, autonomy. So removing the human piece out of it, but still having a little bit of human presence in there. So that's 2.0. And so aircraft like drones, eVTOL are going to shape autonomy, a big piece for everyone to start understanding, because there are different levels of autonomy. And if we are looking for complete autonomy, we cannot, it's not a switch. One day we put it on and expect everything to fly autonomous. It's a path forward. We have to work to do research. We have to work with industry. We have to work with government agencies, and we have to prove that autonomy is something that can exist for every technology. So the other part is artificial intelligence. This is where the human piece is taken out, though the machine still acts as if though there's a human in it. So it takes the decision making. Yes, there's no emotion in it, not yet, but decision making is very important. And as per accidents and in aviation and even in transportation, I would say most of the time they blame it on human error. So trying to remove the human error out of it is the piece here of AI. The next part is electric propulsion. Now, this is a big piece because it plays a role in drones, eVTOLs, even for manned aviation. This has environmental impacts. This has maintenance impacts. This has short distance use case impacts. So electric propulsion has a lot of impacts, but there are certain limitations. But that is how the companies and universities and individuals are working towards challenges like battery and testing hydrogen and various solutions for electric propulsion. Then comes digital engineering. The thing about digital engineering, if you're not aware about it, is the key thing here is digital engineering is where you can predict what the outcome of a test or a operation is in a digital environment. And this is where digital engineering plays a key role, because in any technology, not just in software, but even in hardware and everything, digital engineering is able to, we are able to do multiple tests in different scenarios, and digital engineering has many other benefits there. Then comes the piece of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, though it is not widely recognized as an importance, it is going to eventually decide various programs. For government, absolutely, cybersecurity is going to be a key. We are working with innovative technologies, and when we work with innovative technologies, these technologies can be used for, as much as it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. Systems can get hacked. We have histories of in various countries where the government was practically brought to its knees and had to pay to hackers to release certain things, and there's been a lot of history in these things. So cybersecurity is not just hacking, but also to the point of how a technology is safe. Environmental change. Yes, we are seeing a lot of changes in environment. During winter, we are seeing summer. During summer, we are seeing winter. We are seeing rains. We are seeing weather change happening, and a lot to do with pollution, a lot to do with other changes in general. But with technologies that we are using, clean air can help improve aviation. But if we do not take that seriously, it's going to have an impact. And also environmental changes also affect low altitude aircrafts and stuff where we don't know what the weather changes are, and that's an area that needs to be identified also. Internet of Things is where we are all connected. Machines are connected, and all machines can be run through a phone, can be run through a watch, and everything is talking to each other. So Internet of Things is another important, I would say, solution for the future of aviation. There are many others, and I'm sure others have many other ideas about it, but these are just my vision on the future of aviation. Now, coming to aviation forecast.
Darshan, are you moving your slides because we're still seeing the title slide?
Sorry, I just changed the next slide.
This was the first slide, right?
The aviation forecast is not is the third slide, really.
So we are still looking at the first slide on our screens. We haven't seen the second slide.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me see. Oh, it's saying you paused. Wait, let me just read.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure. Happens. See, we're talking about emerging technologies.
Do you see the aviation forecast slide?
No. Yes, we are about to see your edit version of the presentation.
What about now?
Maybe it will take a couple of minutes. Yes, no, we are seeing it in your presenter mode, wherein we can see the next slide as well.
Let's see if we can let's do this.
Swap presenter view and slideshow, the first option. Yes, right. Now we can.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so let me go back. Yeah, so the aviation forecast. And this is not my data or anything. This is data that is available online. But aviation is already known as a driving force of global technology development and innovation. We are seeing so much changes, and we are part of many of those changes. But when you look at the aviation industry, it supports about 65.5 million jobs around the world, and it keeps increasing because we're bringing in new technologies. The aviation industry supports 2.7 trillion. That's 3.6% of the world's GDP. And by 2036, global air transport is forecast to support 97.8 million jobs and contribute to $5.7 trillion to global economy. So there's a lot of money in this. There's a lot of jobs in this, and the demand is not going to decrease. It's just going to increase. And with air mobility, when we talk about eVTOLs and stuff, it's just going to increase and increase. So we are in an exciting time. We are part of the history making. So this is something that when the future, I would say, like when the kids in school ask what are the career options, there is plenty in aviation. You just don't need to be a pilot anymore. There's a lot more jobs out there. So highlighting on the air mobility side, I'm going to focus on two things today. That's drones, which are currently being used, and electric vertical takeoff aircrafts, that's the near future. So I'm not going to get into the depth of what are drones and how are drones flown. I'm sure all of you all know about it. We can always, you can tag up with me later on and I can give you even more brief about drones. But let's talk about the path forward for drones, where we are right now and what we have to do. Line of sight. We are right now in line of sight operations extensively going on, and regulations are supporting those line of sight. Beyond visual line of sight, DVLS is what we are looking for right now, and it's still a work in progress. But in the next year or two, we may see a lot more changes at both at regulatory level and technology level to support DVLS operations. What we are looking for next after that is remote operations. Already this is being tested out in a testing environment, but remote operations is basically where you can work from one part of the country and control your drone from another part of the country. So that is our goal in the future. But what we are ultimately looking for is autonomous operations, where the drone has been given specific instructions and it does it day in, day out, day in, day out. You don't need a person observing it. You don't need a person flying it. Yes, you may need a person to ensure that all these aircrafts are flying. So as we talk about the path ahead, we also have to think about what are the factors that will influence drones. The drone industry, if you look at it, is still a debate. Nothing is concrete. Even though in US, we can say we have been over 6 years, about 7 years into it. And in India, we are also, there's been, in the last few years, there's been a lot of changes. But the drone industry is not concrete. It's still in debate. And why is because of 5 factors. One is public acceptance. Just because you fly drone, just because you like drone, doesn't mean everyone likes drones. So public acceptance is an important thing. As a drone operator, as a person of the drone industry, it's your job to keep a positive outlook about drones. You should only be using drones when allowed to. You shouldn't be trying to do stuff. That's the key thing. Regulation going to decide if this is a viable technology or not. Not all regulatory bodies or not every individual in the regulatory body is for drones even now. They still have a little bit of doubts and concerns regarding it. So it's our job through that first factor to make sure that they are also in supporting this technology. Training and standards. As much as we keep saying training and standards are important, training and standards are important, every second person out there is not following it. And that is because they think that just because they have flown a couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years, that means they don't have to train, they don't have to have any standards or maintain any standards. In aviation, that is in manned aviation, even today, if you're a senior pilot or a fresh pilot, there are certain standards, there are training requirements that you have to meet to get ground. Technologies, we will understand what we can do and what we cannot. Not all use cases will be able to meet a certain drone. So basically, we'll have to identify what drones can do and what it cannot do. And economic development is another important area, because if you want to make profit, it has to be operations that can get you funding, can have benefit, where jobs are created, where programs are created. So if you want an environment, you have to also look at for drones. You need to also look at the economic development benefits for it. So that was about drones, and now I'll move to eVTOLs. I'm going to be playing a video. The audio is not important if you don't hear it, but the video will highlight about the Air Force's program.
Darshan, is there a sound to it?
Yeah, but ignore the sound. It's just a cool background. So every day, if I doubt why I wake up and why my job is not that exciting, I just look at this video and it changes my outlook. I left the drone industry, or actually drone industry I left, but I decided to go into the next side of it. The next frontier was because of what the Air Force was doing. And this opportunity that I got is, I would say it's that is nothing that is going to make a big impact unless we work together. And the Air Force, the United States Air Force is working towards those goals. In other countries, military hasn't yet got involved, helping build the commercial sector. And this is where this program is pretty unique. So AFWERX and AFWERX, within AFWERX, there are three programs: AF Ventures, AF Spark, and AF Prime. I'm not going to get in depth about the other two, but AF Ventures is where we fund small businesses that have ideas that goes beyond eVTOLs. Anything that is a challenge for the Air Force, we fund those through our SBIR and STTR funding. And AF Spark is where we help our airmen and guardians, that's our soldiers, be innovative. If innovation is not just from outside, but also innovation needs to be built in also. We have to educate and innovate our airmen and guardians. Their ideas also have helped into creating prototypes and technologies. And then comes Prime. Prime, that's AFWERX Prime, is the program where technology that is ready today can we want to accelerate and help commercialize this technology for dual use. That is both for military and commercial use. We yes, within 2-3 years we can have military use cases for these technologies, but within 4 to 5 years, commercially also it can be viable. So we are supporting both sides, not just the military, but the commercial side. We have international partners, we have state local partners. We have a lot of partnerships to help this move forward. So the program which I'm going to be talking about within the AFWERX Prime is our prime, one of our first Prime programs, that is Agility Prime. This is basically a rapid acquisition and commercialization of transformative vertical takeoff technologies. You see a bunch of photos here. These are our partners who went through the Agility Prime program, and they are getting in-kind testing support. That is, we are doing airworthiness testing, we are doing wind tunnel testing, we are doing human factors, we are doing CFD studies, cyber security. We are understanding the capabilities of these aircrafts. We are also helping the companies understand the limitation of these aircrafts so that they're safe for people to fly. And we are funding these initiatives. So what has the Agility Prime done in the last, I would say, 2 years is, first, we have, so the three areas that we have focused in is the electric propulsion and autonomy, and the final one is manufacturing. For a country to have a good base for emerging technologies, we need to have a good supply chain base also. So this is where three areas that we are focused on is electric, autonomy, and manufacturing. And we don't call, there's different names for it. UAM, there's flying cars, there is eVTOLs, drones. We call it OBS, that is organic resupply bus. Basically, it does logistics support and everything. It has certain use cases, and that we call it OBS. Now, why are we doing this? Is because we know that the key to innovation lies with the industry. We want to help our small businesses grow. We want the technologies that are going to help shape the future of our country and the Air Force and the military. We want it, and we want to understand what the future is. So that's why we are working with the industries. We want to improve the process on how we can work with them, and we want to field a whole new air mobility by 2023. And how we are doing this is three things. Technology, we are taking the technology risk out of the factor where our SMEs, our engineers, our facilities are given to these companies to do their testing. In a safe environment, they can fail. The problem of people do not want to see failures because they feel if you fail, it's the end. No, if you have a safe environment to fail, you can succeed. And that is what we are trying to provide. We are trying to help create regulatory changes. We work with regulatory bodies. Financial, we want to help on the finance side. And in the last 2 years, or this is in the just over a year, we have been able to have 29 companies that came through the ICDD Prime program. 4 of them have got airworthiness. These are the only companies that have military airworthiness. They don't have a commercial airworthiness, but they're as close as 90% to getting a commercial airworthiness when FAA releases an airworthiness certificate. 2 is in process. Over $100 million we have spent already. We have over 1 billion in commercial investment. We have simulators right now. We have charging stations. We have aircrafts that are flying, testing, and we have been able to do a bunch of demonstrations. So coming to the end of the discussions, we are not here to focus on many use cases. We are trying to focus on use cases that have both a military and commercial application or even public acceptance level. This is where firefighting, we have been testing it for firefighting purposes. How we can use it as a transportation. These eVTOLs, we can use it for transportation purposes. Already there's helicopters, manned aircraft. How do we add this to the current assets? How do we do short field approaches? That is basically where we need battery for these aircrafts have 15-20 minutes battery life. Maybe these operations require only 5 minutes to drop something, pick up something. So those type of things. Search and rescue. We have been doing surveillance. We are testing autonomous capabilities. We are trying to identify use cases that can be successful in the future. So coming to the end of my presentation, I'd like to focus on where the future is and how it's going to be, how we have to work towards it. So the future of air mobility includes drones, eVTOLs, UTM, cybersecurity. You have counter US, a lot of things. But as a state, as a city, as a local body, as an individual, there's certain things that need to be done for the future of air mobility. So you have to identify stakeholders that are working in this and collaborate on public-private partnerships. This cannot be a public initiative separate from a private initiative. It has to be a public-private partnerships. We need to work on regulations. We have to work with our regulatory bodies. We need to modernize our infrastructure. We have infrastructure. We don't need to build new infrastructure to support these technologies because there's no limit. Then what we are underutilizing, we need to modernize it. We need to create regulatory frameworks for UAS and UAM separate. Do not put everything under one bucket and call it drones. We need to look into unmanned traffic management. There's different levels to reach into that. We shouldn't just expect that one fine day, all drones and eVTOLs will be integrated into this. We need to solve connectivity issue. We need to have a spectrum allocation for this. Remote ID. We need to look into remote ID. Maybe we have to give access to public safety. We need to look into counter US because as much as good we can do, there's always someone out there who wants to do bad. Then we need to standardize the training. Just because you have different drones, different people at different experience, no, we need to have all standardized training, standardized operations, and then community outreach. You need to be involved with your community. If someone is doing wrong, let them know they're doing it wrong, help educate them. And together, that is where the future of air mobility, that is, I call it 2.0 aviation, is going to be successful. So that's my information. And you can visit afworks.af.mil. And, the future of mobility has lift off. And with Space Force, those who are following what space, that space is the next frontier. If we cannot figure out the air side of it, then we are not going to be figuring out the space side of it. So it's very important for us to work together in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darshan. This was such an enriching presentation, and it gives a perspective why US is so successful in getting the technology to the next level. And here we are trying to figure out multicopters and fixed wings and and hybrids. But here you are talking about air ambulances already and air taxis. This is amazing. So one key takeaway from me from the last slide was, there are a lot of things that we need, but one big thing is the will, that you really want to do something. And if there is a will, you will definitely find a way to it. And of course, funding is one big thing which US is generous about. But beyond that, the will is also very important. And when the government will, the people's will, the entrepreneurs will, everything comes together, that is where you create the real ecosystem. And hats off to you for being one of the pioneers who would be initiating all of this, not just for US, but for all of us. Thank you so much, Darshan. So can we have some comments or questions for Darshan, please? So Darshan, how do you visualize the air taxis or the manned, unmanned flights, I would say, to be happening in the near future? Like, how soon can we expect that to be enabled? And would it be that military would use it before the people, or people would be using it before the military? How do you see the equation getting balanced?
Yeah, so first thing, let's remove the word air taxis, because the problem is Uber created a whole culture called air taxis, and we think it's all air taxis. It's the air taxi, and that is why Uber got out of it. Unfortunately, Uber got out of it and handed over to someone else. So that gives you the idea of it's not urban air mobility, it's not air taxis. The main factor here is how are eVTOLs going to help for certain use cases. So yes, here in the United States, the US, the Air Force, most probably will be the first users for it. And again, when it comes to users for it, our focus is to operationalize eVTOL by 2023 for specific use cases in partnership with state, local, and federal agencies. What we are looking at, that is AFWERX, is not the end user of the technology. The US Air Force, the Department of Defense, Army, Navy, everyone are the end users. We are the folks who are going to help educate them, help them, give them the tools and training and everything. Now, by 2023, we are looking to operationalize eVTOLs. Right now, Ohio, Texas, and other states are working towards this. By 2025, we expect at least 1 or 2 commercial use cases. When I say commercial use cases, it's where it's more like for firefighting, maybe even for medical, maybe even for emergency response. If we identify this technology for air taxis as the first thing, it's not going to be feasible. We have to identify something that is an immediate need, and then we move towards the goal. Yes, eventually this could become an air taxi, but if we work it from, that's why earlier it was called urban air mobility, and then they realized that it's unfair because then the rural side is not getting what it needs. So then they said, okay, advanced air mobility. So these are this is where I would say that in US, yes, the Air Force is leading the way, but it requires a joint operations efforts. So there's a question out there. I'm just going backwards. It says, will eVTOL be limiting in terms of distance and duration for some missions? Are you looking at other power types such as hydrogen cells or solar for hail operation? Absolutely, yes. eVTOLs are going to be limited to certain use cases based on distance and duration. It's just like if you have 10 minutes of battery, and you're, if you're doing logistics support, say in our case within the Air Force Base, all we need is 5 minutes, or maybe we need 10 minutes, but we don't need to come back to position A. We can move from position A, go to position B, drop cargo, drop the person, and then charge again and come back to where we want. So, and then use cases, yes, we cannot expect this to replace any technology. That is what everyone has to understand. eVTOLs are not to replace the future of, air transportation. It's going to be an additional tool. Just because there were cars, that doesn't mean people stop traveling by buses. People still travel by buses, people still travel by cars, people still travel by other mode. It's an additional mode of transportation. This question is, I think you mentioned it's of a safe space to fail. Is it? Do you have any advice for those of us contracting drone services to provide them with a safe space to fail, but also to achieve ambitious results? Yes, this is where, so this is Gabriella's question. And this is where you have to work with your universities, with your government agencies to find locations that can be used as test beds. In US, early on, FA had test beds, and there was drone operations being tested, but now it's being tested. While as in the military side, we have airspaces that we maintain, we manage. So we are able to create space to do these testing. So it's all about strategic partnerships with the right entities that have the space. You can also reach out to your universities and find out if they are willing to be a part of the testing, and that is there, you get space to test.
There's a question about emergency location transmitter or similar technology. If in case there's a mishap, can we enable that on systems like air ambulances?
Yeah, so in terms of, do they have some? Okay, so this is still too early. Yes, there will be. We are working with certain companies to identify medical use cases, but it depends on how what is traditional. We cannot have everything that a ambulance has, so we'll have to see what systems can be added. It's still too early because we're still figuring out the safety side of the vehicle, and then we have to test. These aircrafts were not built for specifically for medical purposes. It was for individual or for a cargo capability. If we are putting a space to have a patient, then we have to look at the CGO for it. We have to look at various other battery capabilities and stuff. So this is still early, but yes, there will be certain defibrillators. There will be maybe oxygen cylinders. There may be a lot of things in this that we will have. Right now, drones could be that right tool to test this with various, having an ELT system on it and having it tested, so that when it comes to eVTOLs, all we have to do is plug and play.
There's a question, it may be too far into the future, but do you look at transitioning technologies from airmen to guardians?
Yes, working towards right now is, it doesn't matter it's an airman or a guardian. These aircrafts do not. From the point of view of these companies, anybody can fly, and we have actually tested these in simulators, wherein people with zero understanding of aviation can sit in, take the instructions, and do the job. And really, if I'm a commercial pilot, so when I sit in, I'm thinking about controls in a specific way. I'm really a bad person to teach, because I have certain way of doing flights. But a person that has zero experience can be easily trained, because these systems are ready to be autonomous. These systems do not require a lot of controls. It is as simple as joystick up, joystick down, left, right. That's it. Everything else is set up. So yes, this right now we haven't even figured out if it's going to be airmen or guardians who are going to fly this. Right now, it is just the companies are doing it themselves with their pilots. But eventually, everyone will be able to. And if it's autonomous, it doesn't matter if you're an airman or guardian. You're just going to be sitting in, and it's going to take autonomous.
For firefighting capabilities, the MTOW can be restricted in terms of payload supply to complete the mission. What technologies have you seen which helps the weight limiting factors of many use cases?
Okay. Okay, so the maximum takeoff weight can be restricted in terms of payload. Yes, absolutely. So the firefighting capabilities, there is different capabilities that we have to understand. One can be logistics support where we drop, like EMS, or we drop people, maybe cargo. For that, yes, we need larger weight. Under the Air Force's ICDD Prime program, we have three areas of interest. The first one is 1 to 2 passengers, and 7 to 8 passengers, and the third one is more than 500 pounds maximum takeoff weight capability. So these aircrafts are still to be tested for specific use cases. They are right now simulated and they are done in general. But right now, if you look at the drone side of it, we don't see drones extensively used for firefighting with having water pump connected to it or something like fire extinguisher and stuff, because there are certain limitations when it comes to battery and everything. So we are still too early into it, but I feel like for firefighting capabilities, eVTOLs will have a better capability than drones. Drones will be used more for eye in the sky capability, depending on what type of drones it is. If your drone is a larger drone, then yes, you may be able to do certain things with it. But eVTOLs, because of its capability, 500 plus lifting capability, you're able to attach a bunch of stuff to it and do operations. So there's a lot of technologies that out there are saying they can do this, they can do that, but they are not tested in a. They are all either a prototype or they are simulated and require funding. And when it comes to funding, if you fund this, it takes about 2 to 3 years to actually see technologies. So we are at that point that we have to rely on certain technologies, eVTOLs, for certain use cases like firefighting. And firefighting is one of the key. Even NASA is working on it with us and identifying how we can use eVTOLs for firefighting capabilities.
Darshan, what is your key advice for budding entrepreneurs, technologists, or designers of systems, or just startups who are very ambitious and who have something great in their kitty to offer the world? What do you advise them? How do they become a part of all the things, all the good things that you're doing, and all the clubs that you have made on your site, which are so amazing? How do we go further with our ideas?
So you have to realize that there's no limitations to ideas, but there's limitations to funding. There's limitations to acceptance. You can be innovative. You should be innovative. Never stop being innovative, because the day you stop innovating, your life becomes boring, really. So be innovative. Startups that are looking to change the world, yes, it's required. Yes, you're going to go through challenges, but that is the best thing about it. In US, it took time for startups to be identified as a key technology provider. Today, we have the SBIR, STTR funding, where we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, where we go from feasibility study to prototype to actually building the technology. And right from 50K to 50 million we are providing towards these things. So it takes time. Countries have to realize that there is a need to boost the innovation space. You have to come with innovative programs. You have to reach out to larger companies that have funding and want to do innovative projects, but have not yet been reached out to. Sometimes you may get the most unexpected company to fund initiatives because they have certain pool of funding kept for innovation. And that doesn't mean that innovation is what they are going to be doing or what they are currently doing, but what they can do. So reach out to companies, show them the possibilities, tell them that this is what benefits of this. And remember, failure is not the end of it. And especially startups, the young kids who are out there coming out of colleges and schools and stuff, just remember that this is a big industry. There is space for everyone, but To make that space, you need patience. You cannot, just because you have an idea doesn't mean everyone is going to believe in it. So there may be 100 ideas that will fail, but this is the 101st idea that may come through. Even today, being in my role, I have a bunch of ideas that come out every day. Many of them get canned, but eventually one gets taken. So it's the same thing in the startup world. I think there's a question that's come from Praveen. As you mentioned in your presentation, we need to see spectrum congestion between manned and unmanned aircrafts while flying in lower airspace. How can we resolve that using remote ID? So remote ID is not going to actually solve that problem. Remote ID is going to help aircrafts are flying. So we want to see a future where manned and unmanned aircrafts are flying in the same airspace. The problem is that manned aircrafts are identified in the in the traffic management system, but unmanned aircraft systems do not, because the tech companies that have built these technologies initially built it as a toy or as a specific use case for low altitude. They never thought that it's going to be a technology that's going to participate in the future of air mobility and stuff. So it's something that we have to look into, and that's why you need to have detect and avoid. You need to have ground-based, air-based radar. And here in US, a lot of testing is going on. You have to ensure that you don't have to really. This is a advice. You don't have to start from scratch all over again. You need to partner with other countries, other entities that are already doing this, and bring on board. Get their get their help on stuff, because what we have failed here doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be redone again in another country and failed again. So there's so much knowledge out there on what has worked, what has failed. It's required, if you want the money to be used wisely, the funding to be used wisely, get the right people on board. And this is something not related to aviation, but remember that as an individual, you're not supposed to know everything, but as a team, you're supposed to know everything. And that is what you have to do, is look for people out there who can provide that guidance and help you from those failures which has already been done.
Thank you so much, Darshan. This was a really insightful presentation. And thank you for being a part of our conference. I think my video may be hanging, but I'm still there. I'm hanging on. Okay, back. So we'll move back.
Yeah, congratulations on this event. And
thank you.
I just want to say congratulations on the event and all the best for the rest of the event. Some amazing speakers, Ryan, Gabriela, all of them. I know them, even though it's we have not, many of them we not met in person. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to connect, and I hope you'll continue such initiatives. I'll be glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, and we hope to continue learning from you as always.